Hi students. So today we're going to talk about scatter graphs and correlation. An objective for this lesson is to read scatter graphs and state the types of correlation. Before now we took lessons on linear graphs and quadratic graphs. And I'm sure you're wondering what is it about scatter graphs. In this lesson, you will learn about scatter graphs. You will also learn about how to read scatter graphs and state the types of correlation. So we want to start talking about the relationship that exists, or if any relationship at all exists between two variables. And to start that conversation, we want to introduce a new type of graph called the scatter graph. Scatter graph is used to compare two sets of data. As you can see on your screen, we have a scatter graph showing the relationship between two variables. Scatter graphs are used to represent two linked pieces of data. It actually shows how the two variables relate to each other. And an effective way to see a relationship in data is to display the information as a scatter graph. So scatter graphs provide a convenient way to determine whether a correlation exists between two variables. Now, when we talk about correlation, another name for that is relationship. Another name for that is association. So we want to see, or we want to determine whether a relationship exists between two variables. Now, in most cases, you see a scatter graph looks like a bunch of dots. Okay, but some of the graphs move in a general direction, while others are a general shape. So you can see that we have one variable represented by the x-axis, that's variable 1, and we have the other one represented by the y-axis, which is variable 2. So let's take a look at the three main types of correlation we have. The first one is positive correlation. The second one is negative correlation. And the third one is no correlation. A positive correlation occurs when both variables increase. A negative correlation occurs when one variable increases and the other variable decreases. Also, if the data points are randomly scattered, there is no correlation. We're going to discuss this in detail in the next slide. So let's talk about positive correlation. Now, if the x coordinates and the y coordinates both increase, then it is positive correlation. This means that both are going up and they are related. As you can see on this scatter graph, you discover that as the x coordinate is increasing, you also have that the y coordinate is increasing. So you have both of them going up and the trend is increasing. So if you look at the age of a child and the child's height, you will find that as the child gets older, the child gets taller. So because both are going up, it is positive correlation. As the age is going up, you would also expect that the height would increase. Okay? So here's another example, a scatter graph that shows the relationship between two variables. As you can see, you discover that we have that the trend is increasing from the bottom left to the top right. So it is positive correlation. Also, we might decide to take 2 points. Let's take the first point. You discover that variable 1 is around 17 and variable 2 is around 20. Let's take another point. You discover that variable 1 is around 100 and variable 2 is around 83. So this shows that as one variable increases, the other increases. So this is a positive correlation. Now let's talk about negative correlation. If the x coordinate and the y coordinate have one increasing and the other one decreasing, then it is negative correlation. As you can see on the table, we have the speed and the time. we discover that as the speed increases, the time decreases. So this means that as one is going up, the other one is going down, making a downhill graph. This means the two are related as opposites. So as you have one going up, the other one is going down. So looking at the scatter graph, we discover that the trend is decreasing from the top left to the bottom right. So it is negative correlation. If we take 2 points on this graph as well, here's the first point and here's the other point. We discover that it shows that as one variable increases, the other decreases. So it is negative correlation. The next one is no correlation. So if there seems to be no pattern and the points looked scattered, then it is no correlation. This means that the two are not related. For example, as you can see on the table given, the table is showing the scores of a student in math and French. Now, looking at the scores, you discover that there's no connection between the two variables, math and French. There's no connection between the two subjects. You can't say that it is positive correlation. You can't say that it is negative correlation. The scores are just randomly scattered. And as you can see on the graph as well, you discover that there's no connection between the two variables. The points will be randomly plotted around the scatter graph. Okay, so in this case, there is no correlation. So right now, we want to describe the relationships in each scatter graph. So let's take a look at the first one. We have the hours of sunshine represented by the y-axis, and we have the temperature represented by the x-axis. Now, looking at this scatter graph, you will agree with me that it is positive correlation because you have the trend increasing from the bottom left to the top right. As one variable increases, the other one increases. So this graph shows that the temperature is higher when there are more hours of sunshine. So the temperature is higher when you have more hours of sunshine. That is what this graph is saying. And therefore, this is positive correlation. Here's the second graph. This graph shows that as the temperature increases, the rainfall decreases. As you can see that the trend is decreasing from the top left to the bottom right. So as the temperature increases, you have that the rainfall decreasing. So this is a negative correlation. Now for the last graph, we have the temperature represented by the x-axis and the number of fish in the sea represented by the y-axis. Now what does this graph tell you? This graph shows that there is no correlation. This means that there is no connection between the temperature and the number of fish in the sea. As you would see on the graph, the points are randomly plotted around the scatter graph. So you can't really tell if the correlation is positive or negative because the points are randomly scattered on the graph. So this example will also help you. Let's take a look at it. The scatter graphs of data relate characteristics of children from 0 to 18 years old. Match each scatter graph with the appropriate variables studied. You have the first one, the age and the height, the second one, the age and eye color, and the third one, the age and the time needed to run a certain distance. So the first one, we have that there is no correlation between the age and eye color, and that is number 2, because you have the points randomly plotted around the scatter graph. Now for the second graph, you have that it is positive correlation, because as the age increases, you also have that the height will also increase. That's positive correlation. That's number 1. And for the last one, you have that as your age increases, the time will decrease. That's number three. So the time it will take you to run a certain distance, it is expected that as you age along, the time it will take you to run a certain distance will decrease. Okay? So here's a summary. We have seen the three main types of correlation. The first one, we have positive correlation, which means that the bigger one factor is, the bigger the other factor is as well. Or we can say as one variable increases, the other variable increases. A negative correlation means that the bigger one factor is, the smaller the other one is. Or we can simply say that as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. And the last one, which is no correlation, means that there is no connection between the two sets of data. There's no connection between the two variables. And these are examples we talked about in the lesson. The first one, both increase. The second one increases, the other one decreases. And for the third one, there is no connection between the variables. So thank you for listening and have a good day.